Good morning. It's about 5:20 a.m. here in Orlando, Florida on September 12th, 2025. The interview that you're about to see took place in late August last month with one of my favorite selectors, producers, and personalities, El Blanco Nino. This is a Bronx native, and you may not know it, but he is someone you're already a fan of through his huge catalog on multiple platforms, Bandcamp, SoundCloud, wherever you can find music, you can listen to him do his thing, and it's quite a thing that he does. You might have heard him on Princess Nokia's Brujas. He's the man behind the magic on that song as well, or at least one of them, and it was an absolute honor to see him do a set for CHKN+BEER here in Orlando this past month. That's where I got the chance to meet him face to face and ask him to share his perspective on culture, creation, and even commerce, often through a reflective or critical lens. And I just am really grateful for the opportunity. I'm not much of an interviewer myself, but he is quite the person to interview, and he really carries the day. So, without further ado, in his own words, El Blanco Nino.
The cool thing with club music is that that's kind of just the spirit, is that it's a very
Well,
punk kind of style. Like I'm just gonna make it whether it's okay or not, you know. I'm trying to make bangers and try to make people dance. I'm not thinking of like dollars and cents really at the end of
100%.
the day.
Yeah. Punk is a great adjective for it. It's just saying this belongs to the commons, and when you're using it in a live setting, when people are hearing it through like these platforms, there's a sense that it means more to us than it did to whoever happens to like have the intellectual property of it.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. I think what it comes down to, when it comes to the issue of public domain and copyright and all that, because it's very different, when you're looking at the US versus internationally. But I think in general, I feel like club music in that space kind of there's this gray area where, the scene can kind of create these new sounds and these new genres and these new movements, and like the label kind of takes a little bit to try to profit off of it,
Yeah.
but they don't necessarily shut it down completely. So there's always
Yeah.
like this weird gray area of artists that could kind of skim by and just make like crazy remixes that are unofficial and can take that, that energy and stuff and actually, platform themselves to get bigger shows and bigger opportunities. And that's just off bootlegging records. But I hope that spirit is still here. I don't know. It's a lot different now because DJing is just more accessible. So you have different voices and different people kind of just entering the scene. But
Yeah.
for me personally, I didn't even start off doing club music. I was just making hip hop beats, like with my friend. So I was trying to imitate like Timbaland and Pharrell and stuff like that at the time.
Mm.
And so what kind of made me pivot towards club music was just seeing how similar, hip hop sampling is to sampling in club music. Like, I went to the first, like one of the first like Mad Decent block parties, and they had the Brick City Bandits there, and you have DJ Sega and Tim Dalla, and obviously Diplo is there. But just
Yeah.
seeing like Sega play like a club music track where he samples the Power Rangers or like Mortal Kombat or Angry Birds or something like that just completely opened up like my mind as in terms of like what you can do with a sample. Like it doesn't have to be a hip hop beat. It can be dancey. It can be these different kind of elements.
That's a really interesting perspective on it. I think, especially in the States,
Hmm.
you grow up with hip hop being central. It's synonymous with sampling,
Hmm.
and later on, I think for a lot of people, we realize, wow, there's just so much versatility with this,
Hmm.
and whatever you're passionate about, you get to express it at whatever BPM you want, right? Whatever effects you want, the Mario theme song, or yeah, something from Star Wars, its official licensed merchandise has this very like clear meaning and target audience, but um, hearing like stuff from the prequels, sound bites from the prequels, expressed on a drill beat, right? There's, like you said, that gray area. Um, it the feeling of interpretation on behalf of the artist is like it comes through and it changes your relationship with the original media for sure. Like you don't see it as this just like straightforward uh like commercial product, or if there was a moral to the story, you can like throw that out the window and just see how it relates to whatever your personal experience is.
Yeah, I feel that for sure. I mean, I guess speaking from my perspective, like
Mhm.
I'm born and raised in the Bronx, so
Yeah,
I've been around hip hop as a kid. Like my dad would bump like a Tribe Called Quest like award tour, like in his Toyota Tercel, and before I went for like little league practice. So I've always been surrounded by hip hop and stuff. And so what got me interested in doing like production was like talking to my pops, and he would, we would listen to like records on the radio, or he'd have like a cassette tape or something, and he would listen to like something that I don't know, like Maze did or Biggie or something like that, where they like blatantly sampled like a song.
right.
And he'd be like, damn, man, they're taking my music, like the music that I grew up on. And, I was just curious as to like, what was that music exactly? So luckily, when you go and you buy the CDs, obviously if they cleared the sample, it has to say it contains an interpretation or it contains a
Right.
sample of so and so. So I used to just look at the CDs and just look up the original artists. And like once I had like high speed internet, like it was a wrap. I was kind of just like really digging a lot, and I was really interested in kind of just connecting the dots with things musically and kind of just having it open to kind of just like more ideas. I feel like hip hop kind of really opened up like my musical palette and
100%.
kind of just like exposed me to a lot of different sounds, and kind of just sampling in general kind of just really opens you up creatively as just like a kid in the Bronx, and it's natural too. That's what I mean by the gray area aspect. Like for me, because I'm somebody that's like surrounded by it, and just seeing DJs or whoever, just making with what we have, that's kind of like the spirit.
Like, do you feel like your audience, or when you were first making music, like I've heard different biographies and mentions of how you started that process. It was very much through friendship,
Hmm.
and it was a social thing,
Hmm.
sending beats to your friend online.
Yeah.
Um, were they also in the Bronx? And this was like sort of two kids in the neighborhood figuring out how to like
Yeah.
take the world of sound around them and then come out with something new.
Yeah, I think, well, where I live in the Bronx, I guess people may not consider it the Bronx because I live like on the northwest side, which is called Riverdale. And
Mhm.
Riverdale is like past a park, it's kind of like in the hills. And so it's not, when you go there, it doesn't feel like the Bronx. So for me, I felt a little bit like kind of isolated in a sense. Like I really wasn't like in the city running around too much. Like a lot of the music and stuff that I made was between me and a friend of mine named Josh, who lived closer to like the Broadway, the main area.
Hmm.
And we used to send beats back and forth because unfortunately his parents moved upstate, which was like a 45-minute drive. And like we're in junior high school, we don't have licenses or anything
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So the way that we kept in touch was that he gave me like a cracked copy of Fruity Loops. And that's kind of like how it started. It was just us sending beats back and forth through like AOL Instant Messenger. And, like I said, just making random hip hop beats and stuff. And then I kind of just slowed down in college. I was trying to get into like engineering, getting a quote
Yeah.
unquote like real job. Didn't really pan out the way that I wanted. So when I pivoted to having a degree in communications, it opened up that opportunity to work at the radio station, and it kind of got me
Yeah.
back into music. And so yeah, that's how, once I was hitting like my junior senior year in college, I was already kind of just putting stuff on SoundCloud and just figuring out, you know, just like testing the water, so to speak, because that was all new to most of us at that time.
That gives us so many branches of conversation to talk about. I mean,
Hmm.
speaking first of, it's really cool that your friend made that critical decision, I think, to have you guys stay connected
Hmm.
through sharing files and like the cracked Fruity Loops. Uh, when you're an adolescent and like you said, you're kind of like at the whim of whatever transportation technology you have.
Yeah.
Um, one simple move like that like to create a discord or
Hmm.
to just say we're going to stay in touch. That's the difference between, a friendship in the past and a lifetime relationship. Like,
Hmm.
uh, so just there, I thought that was a critical thing that it seems like it really inspired you. That's how you got your skills. And by the time you're in college, how was it working at the radio station? Were you still doing engineering at that time, or it's after communications? You're the
So at the time that I focused on like working at the local college radio station, that was pretty much doing my pivot from civil engineering to media
Mhm.
communication arts. So media communication arts at the school that I was going to is a combination of taking like advertising and public relations courses.
Yeah.
And then I also minored in journalism. But basically, they wanted us to be more familiar with the student services that they have here, the student newspaper and the student-run radio station. At the time that I was at the student-run radio station, it was a lot of different folks that were into different kinds of music. So um, I know that inside like the radio station, they had like a library of rock records and stuff, but we were the furthest thing from rock and roll because it was all like West Indian, Jamaican, listening to reggae, dance hall, hip hop. And there was actually a few students there that were listening to like Jersey club music, like very early Jersey club music
Mm.
that was coming out, like with DJ Fresh and DJ J Hood and those kind of like earlier like records that were kind of transitioning into that sound that we're all kind of hearing right now. And so, yeah, I was just exposed to all that, and the stuff that I was listening to at that time was like completely different. I was listening to like Bloghouse, so this is like Fool's Gold Records, listening to like Dead Mouse and Cascade, and listening to whatever it was that I could find online, Proxy, the Crookers, the Bloody Beetroots, early Steve Aoki, very just EDM
Right.
heavy style
Right.
records. So I didn't really make that, like I said, I didn't really make that pivot to go into like the Baltimore and the East Coast style club music until I went to like those Mad Decent block parties and like just seeing it for myself. I was like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah, it sounds like you growing up, it's hip hop, it's the samples in hip hop, digging deep into those, and then later on being into like full on electronic dance music,
Hmm.
the stuff that was like really blowing up at that time, and then just via sheer chance, you encounter what feels like the marriage between those two,
Hmm.
which is like Jersey Club and I don't know, footwork at that time. Like,
It might have been early footwork at that time. I mean, I don't want to say early footwork because, like, at least for me, it was listening to dance hall, it was listening to soca, it was
mhm.
listening to like reggaeton and dembo, and then, you would have the EDM stuff that I was talking about,
Yeah.
Jersey club, aspects of like Baltimore club music, um, early dubstep, I think was definitely kind of getting thrown in the mix. So it was just a lot of amalgamation of sounds that I kind of was just exposed to in college that was completely different than what I was exposing to myself, by myself at home, just listening to records and sampling them, or, what my dad introduced me to.
And I guess it's like the curiosity is what you picked up from anything that you're exploring. So as long as you know that if you can get into any genre, some other genres out there that is like waiting to be appreciated, and you can start from any point. It
Hmm.
comes from a friend, it comes from your own searches. You kind of need both. You need that self-exposure, and you need to step out in the world to just see what you otherwise wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean that's how it was at this time. I mean, I'm showing my age here, but like Twitter was just starting when I was in college. So this is like 2008, 2009. I was in my senior year and I had to start a Twitter profile. That was like a
That-
classroom assignment.
That's an
So
enviable age.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it was an interesting like turning point in general in terms of like how I was kind of like digesting music because the blogs were definitely curating and there was definitely tastemakers that were coming out at that time that were putting stuff together. And you also had like the hip hop mixtape audience that was kind of coming
Yeah.
up. And I was definitely listening to that heavy. Like I was a big Dipset fan,
Yeah.
high school
Yeah.
going into college and all that. And, I would listen to like, I would have mixtapes that I would physically buy, either downtown in Manhattan or places in the Bronx. But then, once the internet was fast enough, they had like mixtape torrents. They had websites like mixunit.com or DatPiff that kind of just, like I said, just kept opening these doors. So I just felt like there was this precipice of kind of just like, a lot of different voices having like these kind of niche platforms exposing, different kinds of music at a much different rate than people were used to, like I was still in that MTV, video generation, and this was just a whole new frontier pretty much.
Yeah, the scale of discovery just explodes.
Hmm.
It's really one of those hockey stick kind of graphs,
Yeah.
where just as soon as you have access to like the torrenting and through social media and through like the blogosphere,
Hmm.
uh, and at your fingertips is like an immense world that instantly you can travel to whatever type of sound you want, hear it
Yeah.
from whatever type of perspective you want. And you really see that it's a mix of innovators, people who like have like real cultural roots to something like dance hall,
Hmm.
and also like outsiders who just find that somehow this music speaks to them, even if they didn't grow up with it.
Yeah. I mean, you also have a community of people that want to archive and preserve these
Hmm.
records and stuff like that because I remember at the time the reason why I went to a lot of these blogs that some of them were very much niche to a certain taste. So if I wanted to look for like Brazilian samba records from the 60s, there was a blog that was dedicated to preserving that part of, you know, that culture in Brazil, and they would have like records that you could download for free and high quality. These they're doing it just based off the vibes, they're doing it for the love of the game.
For the love
And
of the
so
game.
that was just something that I was always interested in. And like just to it's totally different now for kids because like me being a teacher
Right.
and the way that they communicate with music and the way that they see music is a bit different. Like for them, the way that I try to explain it to people is just like, they have everything that's available to them within a bird's eye view, but they don't have anything below that level in terms of like absorbing that information properly. Like a TikTok can
100%.
only do but so much,
Yeah.
listening to music on streaming can only do but so much. There's parts of the experience that they're missing out on, whether it's like a concert or a video or just listening to the CD front to back and just like no skips and just taking it in. They don't really experience that. So like, yeah, they'll have songs that are trending on TikTok that are from the 50s and 60s, and that becomes part of their taste. But they don't
100%.
understand the context of the history of that. And so, yeah, they're listening to a lot of things at once, but they're not really absorbing context and information in terms of like the history of it and like why things sound a certain way and, how things kind of come to be musically. And like, I don't really know what to say when it comes to that issue because like I don't have any kids or anything like that. So who am
Mhm.
I to judge? But I do see kind of like this pattern of like there's certain parents who raise kids that have like a really good taste in music, and then there's parents that raise their kids off Spotify. And I could tell
Yeah.
the difference already when they're in
Yeah.
like junior high school and all that in terms of like how they interpret music, their relationship to music is completely different.
Yeah. I'd say that there might be an exchange, or if you go for broadness,
Hmm.
then you're going to lose depth
Hmm.
because it takes time to explore one vein of something,
Hmm.
or I can explore a little bit of everything. And that would be the difference between like the parent one that you talked about, where we're going to get into the history of something
or
versus,
or the parents are more curated with their sound like they
right.
they're more intentional with what they expose their kids to rather than the other kid listening to Baby Shark for 25 minutes straight.
Yeah. Is it I guess a term related to media literacy might be like a media discipline, which
Hmm.
sounds like kind of draconian, but just in the sense that um having an understanding that the algorithm or whatever platform you're on is motivated to increase the pace of content exposure,
Yeah.
because that's where the sponsorships sort of pass through. But if you kind of reject that tendency, and for that TikTok song, saying, okay, instead of looking for the next one within this trend, I'm
Hmm.
just going to look at the origin point of this, and then having the ability to like reconstruct the type of behavior that you would have had when you heard a sample on something in the car while going to Little League. Uh,
Yeah.
like having be able to do that on a micro scale, with technology that like is a lot more maybe openly hostile to that style of exploration,
Yeah.
just because it's not efficient for them, even though it's really enriching for you as the user.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to, and this is like a very special like phenomenon when it comes to like TikTok, is
Hmm.
that there's a lot of times where the kids will show me a record and you'll click on the bottom of the link to see where the song comes from, and they don't even know where it comes from. They don't even know the origins because the sound might have came from another account that used it in a certain way that came from somewhere else, that came from somewhere else. And so it's a lot of like reverse engineering a lot of times when I'm like trying
100%.
to figure out like what the kids are listening to. And I'm just like, okay, well, where did this come from? Like, okay, this is not even, it's an unreleased track. It never even came out, but it's huge on TikTok and it sampled something else, or it came from somewhere else. And so, I guess a part of me enjoys that hunt, but I don't think most kids care about that as much at that age. You know what I mean? They're still identity seeking. They're still trying to figure out what they like and what they don't like. So it's rare for me as a teacher to see kids that are like really tapped in and just like already know what they want,
Yeah.
in terms of music and that relationship.
So they have a different style of interest than you. Like it leads them to, they discover it a different way. They present it to you a different way. They have a different motivation for how to use it or how to be inspired by it.
Yeah.
Does that lead to innovation?
Uh,
At least.
in the schools, I wouldn't say that too much. I think what really happens is more of like kids know what they like at a faster rate now.
Hmm.
And so when they're asking me to put an idea together or something like that, they the program itself is just a new language that they don't really understand, but they already have the song in their head and they just need to put it on the computer. And so for me, my main point is to kind of just show them in the program how to go to A to B. Like that's all I really need to do. We're not necessarily discovering new sounds. They're already tapped
Right.
in, you
Yeah.
know. They're listening, like especially in the Bronx, there's a new musical genre that's blowing up now that is called Zest. But there's
Zest.
different, yeah, Zess. And
Z.
so
Okay.
Zest is kind of like this combination of sounds when it comes to Jamaican dance hall, a little bit of the Harlem like light feet movement that kind of came around,
Mm.
the past 20 years or so. It's kind of like a
Right.
bit of that. And it's also taking, I guess because the internet is also taking aspects of different forms of club music, whether it be like Nola Bounce or aspects of Jersey Club or maybe something else in general. But it kind of throws all these things together in the pot. And that's what the kids are doing. They're kind of just taking stuff from TikTok and kind of just mashing it all together because TikTok is a perfect place to do that. It encourages remixing and mashing things up without permission, you know?
It's like a hydrogen collider. Like, it really is going to be the place where we discover new kind of musical elements or new combinations of elements that,
Yeah, or just ideas in general. It doesn't even have to be an idea that works right away, but it can inspire somebody to kind of rework that idea and maybe just move things a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right to make it
yeah.
more palatable, for an audience, you know what I mean? And so
Uh,
that's kind of fun. Like, believe me, it keeps me on my toes because it's not like, to be perfectly honest, I don't want to make one genre of music for the rest of my career or whatever time I have,
you certainly
like,
haven't already. Like, you
yeah. So I
certainly
feel like I do
already.
have a bit of musical ADD a little bit to kind of just do this much under one name for like 10 years to kind of start off doing like Future Screw type edits, which was kind of like a new thing at the time at
Right.
SoundCloud. And then, moving into club music and just exploring all those avenues up to this point, whether it's, Baltimore, Chicago, Philly, Jersey, UK, whatever. And so, I'm at this point now where it's just like, yeah, I'm not gonna just stop exploring new sounds. I'm constantly surrounded by it. So why wouldn't I want to, give my own interpretation to it and kind of expose it to people? Like people thought I invented Zest Bounce or whatever. Like there was a couple people that DM me and stuff, and they were asking like, "Oh, how'd you put this together?" I was just like, "This is what the kids in the Bronx are listening to. Like I'm just vibing off them."
Yeah.
Like I said, just the aspect of kind of just Jersey Club's influence within the tri-state is like a huge deal because you'll have kids in the Bronx that are making Jersey Club and they influence that with the drill music, and then you have Jersey drill, and it's just um the influence is more apparent now with this younger generation than I think it's been in the past.
Do you think are they benefiting from the fact that these regional sounds got so much time to develop more independently from each other? There was still connection, of course, in the past, but
Yeah, well, I mean, without Chicago, there wouldn't be the New York drill scene, if
right.
we really think about it in that sense. So, yeah, there was always going to be this borrowing and this give or take, so
Mm.
to speak, of like sounds and ideas. I just think that, at least with the youth, they're not, like I said, because they lack context and stuff and understand like historical regional significance, they're willing to kind of just throw more things together.
Yeah, yeah. And those incubation periods for a particular sound are shortening, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
even look at an artist like Cash Cobain, who's from the Bronx.
yeah, yeah.
So a kid that's born and raised there, is he was kind of in the same league as Shawnee Bin Laden, who was a, pretty prolific drill artist that kind of took the sampled drill style and really took it to a different level. And when he kind of split with Shawnee and Cash kind of went his own way, he kind of did this, I don't know, it's almost like a deconstruction of drill, where he kind of introduced more elements in a minimal sense to kind of like mold and shape his sound. He can go and do a for sure with Ice Spice and keep it in that drill sense, or he can do a song like Feel, where
Yeah,
it has ballet funk drums,
yeah.
or or Tripping on a Yacht or whatever, and it has Nola bounce. He's able to morph that in his production style, and I think that's very interesting, for his age to kind of figure that out. And it's just cool that he's a kid from the Bronx that's doing that, you know.
Naturally, I think that's where it would take place, right? Like,
Mhm.
you're both exposed, but you're also within like a super rich reality as well. Like,
Hmm.
it's not just having pure leisure time where everything around you is like at your fingertips. It's going out and like living and like having social interactions and having this appetite for discovery.
Yeah, I feel like that's the big thing for me. It's just to always be like curious about the new sounds and being open to it.
Yeah,
Um, you know, Definitely having a social media feed that has like varied voices when it comes to like different music scenes, I think kind of helps out a lot.
100%.
And it could be very music scenes on each platform. You can have Twitter for a certain, you can have certain people that you like on Twitter musically that you want to follow there that may be different than what you have on Instagram, that may be different somewhere else. That's fine. I also feel like there's certain ways like algorithmically that you can like just keep your palette open. Like a lot of the times when I'm on YouTube, I'm always saving playlists and all that and just making sure that the algorithm stays fresh. I might use a
Right.
website like Sampleette, and Sampleette is almost like a roulette wheel of sorts where it kind of just throws you different videos that you can sample. And those
Mm.
samples I'll play and I'll save it in a playlist, and that's something I can use at another time. And yeah, just I don't know. I don't know if it works for everybody that way, but there's definitely different tools that you can kind of use more now where the algorithm can kind of work for you, and you can kind of keep that freshness, that discovery kind of just there without feeling like you're kind of just stuck in a rut. I consider myself very fortunate to be in this position, like musically, where I was able to kind of just constantly be on this journey of searching for new sounds and people just being interested in what I find and what I put together. I didn't really think anything of it, to be honest. Like um I just wanted to just create, really. I didn't really look at this as a means to like get on certain platforms or work with certain brands or anything like that. I really try to keep it simple and just be like, I just want to work with my friends and just make dope shit. Because I feel like it's possible to do that now. I can have my computer, and make a record that, sells like puts people on tour and shit. You know what I mean? It's a very interesting time.
That's a really like immense role that you have of like when you are selecting and curating and reinterpreting people in a weird way, you're like adding them to the
Mhm.
canon of like things that you can appreciate even if you didn't notice at first.
Yeah, I feel like it's also the music that I put out, especially the stuff that I do annually, like for my birthday and stuff, like around Halloween, is really just like a creative snapshot of what I was listening to at that year. What were the sounds that were influencing me? How did I interpret those sounds? Was I in a good mental space? Like, was I sad? Was I happy? I kind of appreciate being able to kind of express myself in a variety of different forms of club music, to reach a certain emotional connection with people, whether it be through nostalgia or just, I don't know, just being a sappy person or something like that. Just try to make you cry in a club type shit. I don't know.
That's what makes your discography sick is because it's like a calendar.
Yeah.
Like it really feels like a calendar going through like it's always like the summer there you can just expect like you're always going to come back year after year with like a different energy but the same spirit.
Hmm.
And it was really fascinating to like go through. You take me back into those like sounds. Are you more excited by the idea that uh, when someone hears your mixes, your flips, your samples, they're hearing it in the same way that you are? Or are you more excited by the idea that they're hearing it in an entirely different way?
I think I appreciate it more when people DJ out my records in a different way because they
Mhm.
always kind of put blends together or they put ideas together that is totally different than what I would interpret at the time. Like there's some people that will take a fast record and slow it down, or take a slow
Yeah,
record that I have and speed it up, or maybe they'll mix two ideas that I didn't think of. And I always appreciate that because I don't be outside like that. I don't be DJing like that. So for me, the fruits of my labor are kind of just seeing people pass the record around and just seeing how far it goes because I keep it very democratic. Like it's a pay what you want approach. You can give
right.
me 50 cents or you can give me $100. And whatever you do with the record at that point is completely up to you. I don't really send it out to blogs. I don't do it for playlisting or any of that stuff. So it's just I think what I kind of appreciate with certain fans is that there's people that kind of will catch me in those cycles and they'll listen to me at those moments, but they'll kind of stick around just to see what I come up with next. Or they might come
1000%.
back around, yeah, or they might come back around next season and see, what are the new releases and stuff because I've already developed a reputation of just constantly just putting shit out and not I really haven't felt like I rested since like 2020 really or 2019 where it's just been like almost every month or every other month just putting something out. I never was afraid to put things out. Some people get very vulnerable and they'll hold on to tracks for 3 or 4 years, and that would make me go crazy.
Right.
I would feel like it would be so, my tracks would be so behind or it wouldn't match how I was feeling at the time. I like to create in the moment and try to release it as soon as possible. So my workflow has been developed at a very like quick rate, and also seeing other people just do it really fast, like
Right.
DJ Manny. I was just hanging out with Orange Julius in Florida, and my God, that dude is like fucking Sonic the Hedgehog, man. Because he has like a machine and he has all his instruments and stuff, but his workflow is so crazy. It just re-inspires me to be like, damn, I gotta stay on top of it.
Like when you title something like Return to the Stew,
Yeah.
is that coming back from engaging with other artists and other creators in your field and feeling that inspiration like with Orange Julius?
I feel like at that time when I was doing Return to the Stew, it was really kind of a callback to another project that I did called In the Stew Going Crazy. And that was me kind of
Mm,
searching for this
okay.
feeling of trying to replicate a certain artist and a certain sound I was listening to from this Jersey Club producer called King Tiger Z.
Hmm.
And King Tiger Z had like these mixtapes on Dat Piff, like Death Before Dishonor, and he had another mixtape there. And like his music is just it was so ahead of the curve, but it was just when he came out, there was a lot of acts that were blowing up at the time. So he kind of just was under the radar, so to speak. But I remember like DJ Nina from Game Fatale and all those folks were playing his records and stuff, and it got popular again because we would listen to it on SoundCloud. And yeah, I just went into it. I was just like, man, like, just how can I how can I imitate that energy where he had like this minimalism and kind of just intense rhythms, almost like techno-ish, this amalgamation of kind of like this Jersey Club minimalism that he developed, and that's where In the Stew Going Crazy was the album was based off, him and his sound. And Return to the Stew was basically kind of trying to recapture that energy, but apply it to a much faster palette of taking
Right.
club music to like 180 beats per minute and further and try to be more original with it, try to make more original like melodies and sounds and stuff like that, and just see how far I can take that idea.
You were innovating on like this really particular like craftsmanship that you saw, and you saw other people playing with it. It was your turn, right? So now, hence, Return to the Stew.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what it felt like. It was just wanting to kind of just expand on the idea of what I felt was kind of like club minimalism and like
Hmm.
what can I interject into that in my own way where it's like, I can kind of show my inspirations, but also interject my personal, I guess, flair or flavor or anything like that. That's always what I'm trying to do because I don't really consider myself like an innovator or anything like that. I'm just a kid that just likes to throw a lot of pieces together and just see what sticks, you know? Like I never wanted to be like a Diplo character where I Christopher Columbus like every fucking genre. Like I'm
Nah,
not the
nah,
type, you know what I mean? So for me, it's not even just like making these sounds and putting these sounds together, but it's also working with those people directly. So being inspired by club music and working with Jersey Club artists directly is important to me. And like, you know, connecting with the artists out in Baltimore, like S. Dot and Cade and Jelaine and all those folks, and working with them, not just on production, but also like mixing and mastering and just being a part of that scene means so much more to me than like making 100 records, you know, because just being part of that sound and just seeing that spirit and that energy kind of just gives me that inspiration.
I love that you made that distinction between like a more like Colombian style vertical colonization of
Yeah.
different sounds versus just this horizontal wandering into like communities and coming out with just being genuinely affected by that community. Therefore, like broadening it, expanding it. And I feel like that's an important distinction to make that like you can explore different genres, you can make your own interpretation of them,
Mhm.
and doing so in a way that respects the authoritativeness of the original sound by continuing it in a really sincere way, as
Yeah.
opposed to making it an artifact and then like your set's like a museum of different things to look at. Um, that's that's really a powerful kind of way to put it.
Yeah, and I also feel like it carries that funk aesthetic because like fuck these
Yeah,
brands. I'd rather work with the people directly and whatever I can do to add, you know, because I don't really consider myself like I don't have main character syndrome. I really feel like, you know, I just play the position that I'm in and I just take that as far as I can. And so, like I said, you know, I'm just really fortunate to not only be in a position where I can make the music and be inspired by the music, but also reinvest and give back and, you know, foster those relationships and just see what happens. You know, there's really no expectations, at least on my end. A lot of the brands and stuff that were kind of like institutionally part of the club scene, you know, in the past 25 years or so, are all of a sudden kind of selling out to the highest bidder. And I wouldn't say that like I wouldn't say I'm a rebel or anything like that. I'm not like a revolutionary or anything, but if I feel like something's wrong, I'm gonna just speak my mind on it.
right,
And so it's been a very interesting time this year, just seeing, you know, artists that I've looked up to that are kind of just dropping the ball on a very easy moral issue, you know, just for the sake of gaining some late stage capitalism. You know,
right,
it's really disappointing to kind of like witness. There's artists that are involved with these boiler rooms that are not promoting it. They're
no,
not saying that they're on the bill. No videos. You don't see them getting like mentioned or anything like that. They won't put it up on their pages, and they know why.
they know why.
Because they don't want to deal with the shame. They don't want to deal with the backlash. And it's just disappointing to see that. And like I said before, I'm very fortunate to be in a place where I don't really have to worry about that because, you know, music is not my full-time job. You know, I
Right,
teach, you know, I make a little bit of Bandcamp money. It's nothing that crazy, but you know, that's not my full-time job. So I don't have to make those tough decisions. But I think what kind of disappoints me in general is just the community of artists that I was brought in with, you know, 10 years ago, and we're doing stuff now, and just seeing that they would let an artist make that decision without really going over all the different types of information or just trying to hit different avenues and figure out other ways that that artist can be supported if it's really a financial issue, you know.
what
That's the
this
thing that's kind of disappointing.
yeah, what this art to me, what this music is to I think a lot of people was um there's an undertone to it that is political,
Hmm.
um, in the sense that it's about sharing things and having access to things and not exploiting a tradition for, attention or a leg up
Hmm.
in any kind of commercial sense. There is like a political undertone to the way that this music is shared and evolved and the way
Hmm.
it's participated with. And I think that working with institutions that like specifically betray not just the principles, but the people that are behind the beginning of that culture,
Hmm.
it does feel like you're trying to say music is just music when it's really hard to make that case
Mhm.
when music could only exist given a certain reality, or given a certain economic
Yeah,
situation.
commodification or something,
Right, right.
like music can only be consumed through commodification, like
Yeah.
your whole life has to be commodified through social media and all that as an artist. And I don't do that shit at all. Like, and it's nothing to take away from people that do the reels and are on it every day.
Hmm.
More power to you because I know that takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, 100%.
But it's just not me because I just don't like being in that rat race, like I feel like I tend to lose focus. Like that time that I'm doing an Instagram reel and all that, I could be making music. You know what I mean? Or going to the club every weekend and try to politic with people. I could just be home making music. I can always fall back to that excuse. And so it's just like I said, it I really felt, especially like that 2020 2021 era during the pandemic where everybody was just like, we don't know if we have careers anymore because the clubs
Right.
are closed. There was really a very interesting phase, especially through Bandcamp and like even Twitch, where there was this very super communal effort where people were putting out these compilations of dozens of artists just putting out the best music that they could at that time because they didn't know what was going to happen. And a lot of money was being raised, a lot of money was being distributed and all that, and I feel like that could still exist. It's tough as an artist right now, like even me trying to do like a pay what you want, to do that for 10
Right.
years is crazy.
Yeah,
You would think I'm broke, but I did it that way because that's my philosophy. It's just like, I understand that my audience is not just, I'm not trying to just get people that have money. I want to get people that play my music, that have the access to do it and don't have to worry about like choosing this and like getting a bite to eat, because that's how
yeah,
certain artists are. And I try to always keep that like in the back of my mind that like, even though, my stuff gets played out everywhere at this point. It always goes back to that person that just gets introduced to it at that random time. And, if they have that opportunity to download and I get their engagement and attention enough, you know, it takes me to interesting places. So I think also because my catalog is so deep, it takes a while for everybody to catch up. There's still people that are playing my records from like 6 to 8 years ago.
1000%.
And, it's cool that way. But once they get tired of that, I would hope that they could think that there's a lot to still kind of explore for sure.
Do you think that 5 years ago, or however long ago, you
Mhm.
had made some move that said, okay, I'm going to like collaborate and monetize with whoever's going to make me like upwardly mobile. I don't want to invest back. I want to be invested in. If you had made that decision, do you think that you would have the like creative profile that you went on to develop? And would you be in this position where you can pass that on to a new generation?
Um, Man, that's a good question, right? Because I feel like a lot of times when people reach out to me and they ask me like, "Oh, how do I get playlisted?" or "How do
Hmm.
I talk to such and such?" I don't really have that experience, to be honest with you, because
Yeah.
nobody's ever really approached me in that style. A lot of the things that I've done, especially this year, whether it's doing stuff at the Lot Radio, doing shows in Brooklyn, or doing the stuff in Orlando,
Yeah.
purely organic, just somebody reaching out to me and me being, me letting me know if I'm available or not, which is 9 times out of 10, I'm pretty much available. I'm single, I'm by myself, I don't have kids. All I do is teach. So it's a different type of thing. The only time that I really touched that type of popularity or went into that business side of stuff was when I co-produced Princess Nokia's Brujas
Oh
way back
yeah.
when for the 1992 album. And
Wow,
that
that's you.
yeah, I co-produced that
Oh
with Bass
my
Bear.
God.
Yeah. So we did that record. We were sitting on that instrumental for months. And it was just by happenstance that Nokia was dating Bass Bear's roommate at the time.
Hmm.
And so she came by to, where I'm staying now at my grandmother's house. And yeah, we were just showing her beats and that was the one that she kind of stuck on. And she wrote like the first verse there and then it kind of just snowballed. But that experience taught me a lot in terms of like ownership. We when she was trying to market it to like Fool's Gold and give it for free and stuff like that, we were like, okay, it's no big deal. But then once she decided to actually get like real distribution and like real numbers behind it, like public records and all that, there was a lot of stuff that we learned in terms of like ownership, um, where we can get our money from, understanding royalty splits and all that. A lot of that I learned like through that experience.
All that stuff kind of exists at the edges of the actual creation because what you started, the memory started with that day,
Hmm.
meeting the people that you're collaborating with,
Hmm.
having a great time, having her pick out like
Yeah, it's
what
just a
she wants
moment.
to do. Yeah, just the moment,
Yeah.
and then all that stuff comes in later.
Hmm.
That it just happened to be like chomping at the bit to process it
Yeah.
through that ownership structure, the royalty like strategy.
Yeah, or licensing, I think made a
Yeah,
huge
yeah,
difference. That's what I learned from that experience. I learned that royalties don't mean shit, but licensing means a lot. So like
100%.
if there was ever a time that she wanted to use her song for a TV show, a movie, trailer, any that type of stuff, because we own the instrumental, she has to get our permission to use it. And so they got to pay us separately. But everybody else that I've worked with at this point, whether it's like Sasso, working with Rainy, like local Bronx artists and stuff, nah, that's all copacetic. Like we're just in proximity. You want to make something, then let's make it happen.
Those are social, exchanges. Those are like dignified deals, I would say. Uh,
Yeah,
and
and
so
it,
long
and
as
it's
those
and it's
exist.
and you we're both from the same borough, so like why wouldn't I? You know, we're in this together. I mean, from my perspective, until I figure out you're a clown. Otherwise, musically, we're in this together because I want us to represent the borough.
Going in with that hope in mind will, I think, always again come back
Yeah.
to you in a positive way.
Yeah, and I just try to keep to those morals and standards. Like, even though I may not be close to artists that I came up with now because, my personal feelings and morals of just like how things are changing in the scene, but there's people that I've known 8+ years that are coming right back around into, my life that are introducing me to new ideas and making me come outside more and, just try to participate more, just give me that motivation to kind of just stick with it. Because, there's definitely times where I felt like not in the sense of FOMO, but just feeling like, am I just a cog in the machine or people really fucking with me? You know what I mean? And so I think this year was definitely a good experience to kind of just get that answer. And it's been a fun summer.
Yeah, I think that if you apply a patience with receiving that answer,
Hmm.
it becomes the answer that you're hoping for.
Yeah, I think it's more of just instilling that personal confidence because sometimes as a musician, you can feel like a lot of the times you're just yelling in the void, whether
Yeah.
it's creatively or, sending out a message or something like that. It can really feel like you're just shouting at nothing. But it's really invaluable, like I said, to kind of just go outside, not touch grass per se, but just see what the scene is like. If there's a good show out there, pull up. I'm sure you're going to see somebody that you may want to check out, and anything could happen.
Yeah, you're like kind of explaining like the bright side of that whole dark forest theory of the
Hmm.
internet. Like, don't broadcast yourself or don't, yell into the void because you don't want to know what comes back and tries to respond back. But the opposite is also true. It's a leap of faith to
Yeah.
put your stuff out there, to, like you said, not really be precious with it, and just have a confidence that someone's gonna fuck with it, someone's gonna rock with it,
Hmm.
and when we rock with it together, all you really do is like multiply your enthusiasm about like that project, the continuation of it,
Hmm.
and the future to come, right? In the studio, socially,
Hmm.
at actual venues and events. Um,
Yeah,
it's
it just covers my whole lifestyle, to be honest, because I
right.
teach music, I make music, I travel with music, you know what I mean? So it is part of my character to kind of just always constantly be involved in it in some way, whether it's creating, sharing, giving back, just the entire cycle. I feel like I'm in a very interesting place in my career and in my life right now where I could kind of combine those two passions of teaching and music with my expertise of just like my experiences the past 10 years into like this point in my career.
Where has music taken you to, since you mentioned travel?
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty much all up and down the East Coast.
Yeah.
I've been out west to LA, I've been to Toronto, I've been to London. In terms of teaching, obviously, I've taught all over New York, I've taught in Baltimore, I've taught in DC. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not crazy about flying. I really don't like flying that much, but I understand that, it's the best way to kind of just travel.
When we spoke in Orlando,
Hmm.
maybe I remembered this wrong, but you like mentioned like you didn't know how much you were fucked with in Orlando. Like you didn't have an idea of that until like Chicken Beer reaches out
Hmm.
and it's that organic thing,
Hmm.
It's led us to having this conversation. Um, that's something that I've always thought about is why would I move to really established cities that are like, the meccas of culture
Hmm.
when if if people left those cities back in the day, they would have never became what they were, like in a sense, like staying anchored
Hmm.
to your original context while still being like brave enough to branch out to other places, striking the balance between those things while still, investing back in your like
Yeah.
original community. Um, I think that holds the most promise. That's where you like prevent, maybe you prevent your motivation for what you do from
Yeah.
getting diluted.
Yeah, yeah. I think it also prevents like a burnout,
Yeah,
if you're doing world tours every year and stuff. I don't know how I could mentally prepare for that or physically prepare for that. But the age that I'm at now and just what my career is at now, like I said, it's a really good balance and I'm happy where I'm at this moment. Um, can things change? Absolutely. But I know that if things were to change or if I had to slow down or anything like that, there's just so much material that's still coming out. Like honestly, like
100%.
there's, the even if I'd stopped for a year, you would still think I'm making shit because it's in the tank. Everything is there just chilling. So, like I said, I'm in a very like good place. And I'm just really fortunate that people recognize that and people want to reach out and work with me.
In the best way possible, this has been demystifying for me,
Hmm.
because like that's you present yourself like so genuinely as like I am like I'm in the Bronx, I'm available to like just communicate,
Hmm.
collaborate, doing it for the love of the game, and
Yeah, I think that would breeds longevity, honestly.
yeah, yeah, like uh, by itself, that is all you really need to stay in touch with why you originally got into this. Like, I
Hmm.
think that what you said about COVID
Hmm.
and how like it just took like people on Twitch, people like on Twitter, wherever, saying we're going to just make a concerted effort to keep people in contact with each other, to create
Hmm.
keep the creative juices flowing. Like
Hmm.
that really rhymes with what you spoke about with your friend, moving
Hmm.
away, being
Hmm.
physically spaced away from each other.
Hmm.
But day after day, like making really deliberate clicks, making really deliberate like messages
Hmm.
that say physic geographically, we have no excuse.
Yeah.
Like we live in a time like where on, only in this time could something like that happen, right? And to imagine a world where it didn't happen, like, why would you even, right? Just live in the world where it's possible.
Yeah. I mean, that's really kind of the gist of it, at least when it comes to my career, because I feel like the people that I was inspired by in the club scene at the time laid the foundation for all of us to kind of be exposed to the new scenes, whether it was like
Mhm.
A-Track doing Fool's Gold or Diplo doing Mad Decent, or you had like Skrillex doing Ausla, all those little niches that were coming in as the internet was kind of blowing up, kind of just created this new audience of kids that were willing to kind of just take it in all these different directions or saw what they were doing and just like, oh, I can build that platform in my own backyard type of situation. And so you're starting to have that now, like Boiler Room used to be that one place where it had that one template, but now that template is being modified and duplicated so many different ways now that, it kind of you know, you got to learn to differentiate yourself a little bit more because then it turns into like a Dr. Seuss book, like Green Eggs and Ham.
Right.
It's like, can you DJ on a boat? Can you DJ on a float? Can you DJ on a bike? Can you DJ, like it
You
gets a little
DJ
bit
on a
too
hike.
crazy. Yeah, yeah. So it's like it gets a little too crazy, but I think, you know, it's an interesting time right now. Politically things are a little bit crazy, but in those moments, you know, amazing things can still happen. These institutions, these brands that are here that are highlighting us and trying to platform us or trying to exploit us or anything like that, they're not here forever. They are not the alpha and the omega. There has been a scene that was generated before these people ever existed, before we even existed. There was already a culture and a scene there, and it's going to be there way after they're gone. And it's really, we have the power as a community to just be like, we don't fuck with that no more. And
No,
we
we
can do
don't.
that. It's possible. It's possible. I've seen boiler room cancellations in Puerto Rico and Brazil. I was out there in Brooklyn. It was good to see people out there supporting. It's definitely possible to kind of just take the power back and just deplatform these people because like they need us more than
They
we
need
need
us.
them. Like I truly do believe that, and hopefully people will wake up and realize that. So
And that's the most fun kind of rejection I can possibly imagine, where
hmm
you say like all of these things are temporary
hmm
and they want to make you temporary along with them. But instead, like try to think of it like kind of energy.
hmm
Communities photosynthesize, and that takes billions of years. But these industries, these giants, and then they want to burn through you like oil.
hmm
Um, we just don't let them, and we just continue to have a blast. Like that is a beautiful like sentiment to end it off with. Like
Yeah,
it,
and I think it's possible. Like I said, I felt those things in 2020. I see that now just working with people individually. It's definitely possible. Unfortunately, I'm not in a type of position where I can really put it all together right now. I'm still trying to figure things out with my career and like where I can take that in terms of teaching and how that can connect and connect more people and stuff. I'm still figuring that out, but I still have those hopes and those aspirations.
it's been a balance of certainty and curiosity
hmm
that it seems like has brought you to where you're at now.
hmm
And I think the people you're impacting in your life with your actions, um, it's the greatest possible place to, devote your energy, to allow for the culture that moves through you to
hmm
continue to travel and have a life of its own. And you've shared so much of that with me today. It's been
Yeah, like I said, I'm a certified yapper, so my apologies.
certified, like, I mean, credentialed, not
Nah,
even
that too. I
certified,
appreciate
credentialed
it.
yapper. Like, and more
Thanks.
people need to hear it.
I appreciate
So
that.
yeah, this was beautiful. You
Yeah,
are like living legend. Like
appreciate that.
those words aren't an injustice to both what you've like put out here
hmm
over all these years, the people you've worked with, and what you've said here today. So I'm forever grateful.